have equity in that deal. So whenever that property sells, you will get that original investment back.
Hey guys, how you doing? Welcome to Millionaire Mafia. I've got my good friend and creator of the Bulletproof Wealth Strategy, Tom Lonnie, with me today to talk about something that, if you looked at the title of this video, is probably a little confusing if you know me or any of my other videos I've done, because I've kind of been a little bit vocal about some of the things that I disagree with Dave Ramsey on. But in this video, Tom and I are going to talk about why Dave Ramsey is actually right about life insurance. And so Tom is going to go ahead now and talk a little bit about why Dave Ramsey is in fact right. So Tom, why is Dave Ramsey right?
Thanks for having me, Jake. I really appreciate that. The main premise that Dave Ramsey comes up with, and before I explain this, I want to give you a tiny little background. So I'm a chartered financial consultant. So I've been through all of the classes and tests that you need to take to become a certified financial planner, and then gone an additional 2 years after that. And I'm also a chartered life underwriter and a chartered special needs consultant. So I have a little bit of background in kind of the general financial knowledge that is out there. And Dave is constantly saying, you know, A, whole life is a terrible investment, and B, you need to buy term insurance and invest the difference if you want to have more money at the end. So the reason that I agree with Dave is because you certainly, if you are spending a small amount of money on term insurance and then investing a large amount of money into some sort of equity market or some sort of risk asset, then at the end of the day, you know, he's correct. You're going to have more money than if you would have taken all of that money and put it into a traditional whole life policy like your grandfather would have had. So that is 100% correct. Kudos to you, Dave. You've accurately diagnosed that. However, the thing with that is very misunderstood and misleading in that statement is that the idea of whole life being an investment is frankly 100% wrong. So that's the part that gets really confused, is that whole life insurance is definitely not an investment. It's a key part of my Bulletproof Wealth Strategy, and it's actually the second leg of my Bulletproof Wealth Strategy stool. And I use term insurance every day as one of the legs of my Bulletproof Wealth Strategy. So that shows people that, you know, obviously I'm not a proponent for that. I am a proponent for term insurance, but with whole life insurance, that area that I use it for is the best place to save money. In other words, it is a savings and accumulation vehicle that then can be collateralized to use to do your investing. And if you do it that way, you're going to maximize your rate of return on your money, and you're going to be making money like banks do, which is absolutely huge. And I show people every day. In fact, I just did a video on this at a conference in Florida a couple of weeks ago for a group called Flip Hacking Live, where I showed how I increased my rate of return by 13.3x, 13.3 times more rate of return by employing my Bulletproof Wealth Strategy. So Dave, you're right. Term insurance and the basis of that with a risk thing, with an investment, is good. That's not what I teach at all.
Yeah, so you bring that up. You make that very distinct and clear thing there, is that and I think a lot of people misunderstand this, is that the whole life policy or using the Bulletproof Wealth Strategy is not the investment. Like, whole life is not the investment, right?
No.
It's the vehicle in which you are able to kind of hold your money and then use loans against it. And there's some obviously insurance benefits as well, some death benefits,
Yes.
some living benefits, disability, stuff like that are just additional things that, I mean, is there any savings account with a bank that you can get that with?
So the savings account, when you put money in a traditional bank, it's earning usually 0.25% or less. They basically don't pay you anymore to leave money in banks because they're trying to disincentivize that. They just are absolutely paying you nothing. And then the tiny little bit of interest they pay you is taxable at your ordinary income tax bracket. So there's no tax advantages there. But the bulletproof wealth strategy is putting money first into this specially designed whole life policy, which is nothing, by the way, like a traditional whole life policy. It's designed for maximum flexibility of putting money into it. And it's designed for maximum cash accumulation so that you can use this huge collateral capacity that you have to borrow against your whole life policy and then do your investing. So that would be kind of leading into why in the world do I almost exclusively work with real estate investors? And the reason that I almost exclusively work with real estate investors is because they're the unique group of people that want control of their money. They know what they're going to invest in if they have access to their money. The normal person in America wants somebody else to invest their money for them, and they have no idea where to put money. But real estate investors are awesome group of people that they say, hey, I got this deal over here that I can put money in and absolutely kill the returns that I would get in a mutual fund. And one thing I will go ahead and disagree with you on, Dave, is that there's a fictional 12% guaranteed mutual fund that you constantly talk about. That is just the biggest joke I've ever heard. That is fictional, never has existed, and never will.
Yep, that one I remember, and I would be offline before Tom and I started this video recording, is that we were talking about where I had started, and I did a video on this. I had $3 in my bank account, and so I ended up doing Financial Peace University, and I have a lot of things that I do agree with, as far as a foundational financial kind of independence thing through Dave Ramsey, that I do agree with things that he, for the masses, is good for. And that definitely helped. But then once you build that foundation, you still got to build a house, right? And so what Dave doesn't allow you to do is to build a house, because savers are going to be losers. That's just the way the financial institution works. You can say whether you agree or the Fed is the Federal Reserve, and the way financial institutions work and use debt and all that stuff is right or wrong. That's for a different story, or different conversation. But at the end of the day, it's the way the world works. And so a lot of people are going to get screwed doing the Dave Ramsey only thing. That's a great foundational thing, but then you got to move on. But anyway, that's really good. And I just want to backtrack a little bit for some of you who don't know what Flip Hacking Live is. Flip Hacking Live he's actually the owner and operator of that is Bill Allen, and he's a good friend of mine. I knew him as a pilot in that world before I even knew anything about real estate. And he introduced me to Tom, but he has an uber successful, just crazy, multiple 7 figures business, flipping business, wholesaling business, educational stuff, as well as syndications, which is what I do a lot as well, raising millions and millions of dollars. And he brings the best and brightest and most successful fellow investors to his events. Tom just mentioned the one was in Orlando. My partner, Tyler, just went to it and did a presentation, as well as Tom. And so, these are like the cream of the crop kind of guys that go to this. So this is no little, joke thing that we're doing here. So this is very important. And speaking of real estate investors, which Tom mentioned, and I'll let him go into a little bit more detail in a minute, it's all about control with investors, right? We want to control everything and own nothing, ideally, right? If you can get that $5 million non-recourse debt, Fannie Freddie, locked in for 30 years at 3%, like that's awesome, right? We don't want to own anything, right? Donald Trump doesn't own a thing. He controls everything, though, right? So that's what it all comes down to. And these policies, I shouldn't say these policies, that's part of it, but the bulletproof wealth strategy is a way that you can gain control over your savings and then leverage it not only into other deals, real estate that we would normally do, real estate business, but also protect yourself and your family long term through, the different benefits of life insurance. So that's why there's that very key point that isn't made and that isn't focused on by Dave Ramsey, which is it's not an investment. Whole life insurance is not the investment. It's just a part of the entire strategy, which is used to create generational wealth, which is the focus here at Millionaire Mafia. Do you have anything to add on that, Tom, or any?
I think what you said was just wonderful, Jake. And I'll just end by talking really briefly about risk adjusted returns. And when you look at whole life, the only thing that it's comparable with on a risk adjusted basis is a savings account, right? In fact, in my personal opinion, whole life is safer than a savings account because the financial institutions that you're saving money with in whole life are, 175 years old. And there's very few of these mutually owned companies that go out of business ever. They just go on forever. And banks, on the other hand, go in and out of business and are being bought and sold and liquidated and just crazy amount of volatility in the banking world. So there's a lot more safety in whole life than there is in a traditional bank, but there's no question at all that on a risk adjusted basis, the market, which is what Dave Ramsey is talking about when he says invest the difference versus whole life on a risk adjusted basis, is not even in the same universe. It's not even in the same universe. So you can't, as you take more risk, your expected return should be higher. That's just basic financial planning. Is you have to watch out that you ask the very important question, compared to what? Because Dave does not do that. He's not comparing. He's comparing something that is as safe as it gets to something that is highly volatile and risky. And then saying, well, the volatile thing should be better, but well, of course it should be. You're getting a higher expected return as you take on more risk.
Right. It's got to be apples to apples. So
exactly.
Awesome, Tom. Well, hey, in the meantime, if somebody wants to get a hold of you and talk to you about what is this bulletproof wealth strategy, like I said, I'm going to link the video that we did where Tom specifically discussed it. But if somebody wants to get a hold of you and discuss this, or even see other videos and information, a lot of people don't like to talk on the phone to people, at least until they get a good idea. Where can they find out more about you and your bulletproof wealth strategy?
Absolutely, Jake. So my website is bulletproofwealth.info, bulletproofwealth.info. And if you just put your name and email in there, you can get access to a very high quality, free educational video library that you can go through and really learn all the nuances of what I teach. And then I'm not going to bother people. So if you watch these videos and you don't like what you see, just don't do anything and you're totally cool. If you do like what you see, there's a button inside of there to schedule a time to talk with me, because every one of these things has to be done on a custom basis. So I can't talk to two different families at once, because every strategy that I create is custom designed.
Yeah, and we're going to actually we'll talk about this, but in a later video, but we're actually going to break down my super custom policy. And it had to do with where I was at in my career, what my career was, and kind of my family breakdown, everything like that. Bill Allen, that I mentioned earlier, also has a very unique one with his kids' policies because of some insurability stuff. And I'm not going to get into details there, but everybody's going to have a different situation. And that's why these things are so awesome. The bulletproof wealth strategy as a whole versus just the policy or just what you invest in. It's an all-encompassing, holistic approach. Anyway, Tom, once again, thank you very much for taking the time out of your busy day. Link your information below, guys. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this one. This stuff is huge. We're going to do a couple more videos on this. So if you're interested, keep watching more videos. If you got any more other questions, I guarantee you we're probably going to answer some, if not all of them. And if you have any other ones that we don't answer, please go ahead and comment below, and I'll get back to you or reach out to Tom directly about those specific things, because he's definitely going to have a little bit more higher level knowledge than a guy like me. I just use the policies and make a lot of money with them. So anyway, until next time, here's to your wealth.